Hey guys, welcome back to another filter review. This is the Tetra Whisper 4i internal filter. It's the cheapest power filter on Amazon currently. It's coming at just, I think, $5. It's usually packaged in with the beta tank kits, that kind of deal, under 5 gallons for sure. But you can purchase it just on its own, outright. It comes like any other internal filter. If you've ever used any of the Tetra Whisper line filters, you kind of know what to expect here. You're going to get a package that looks like Amazon drop kicked it on the way to your house, and they'll also be 2 to 3 days late if you're as lucky as I was. But that's just the Amazon experience these days. And if you can get through the child-proof packaging, which is also crisp-proof in this case, you'll find the filter itself in a plastic bag, and what I'm sure is just a very riveting instruction manual here. So if you go ahead and pull the filter out of the bag here, stuff's gonna fall out everywhere, but we'll also have an included cartridge. We'll talk more about those here in just a minute. The filter itself with what looks like to be maybe a 6-foot long cord, maybe a 9-foot, pretty standard. The bracket to mount it on the tank. That's another thing we'll be talking about here later. And on the floor, you'll find the lid to the filter. Now, I don't think this thing, I think it just kind of snaps on. I don't think there's any hinge to keep it on, but again, it's $5. What do you expect? Now, the 4i manages to be an improvement over its predecessor, the Tetra Whisper 3i, in a couple different ways here. For one, it's got an integrated pump. So the 3i was air driven. It came with this really cheap diaphragm air pump in the box, which worked, right? So it was serviceable, but that thing wore out after just a few weeks, a few months of use, especially if you had a longer airline tubing that it came with. It came with like a 1 or 2 foot run. If you were trying to run it from a tank stand or something like that, so more than 3 or 4 feet, the back pressure of that extra tubing would cause it to kind of wear out quicker. This filter is also slightly larger than the 3i, which I guess would make sense. It's meant for slightly larger tanks, up to 4 gallons. Now, there are a couple things I wanted to talk about before we get to setting this filter up on a tank. The first of which is the mounting mechanism this filter uses. It's actually a plastic clip. It'll fit over a rimless aquarium, so if you have a beta tank without a rim, or some sort of custom tank, it's going to work just fine. It'll be a little bit high up off the water, but it should work. With a rimmed tank, it will not fit. So you can kind of force it on there, but it's not going to be secure, and you're going to have it wobble around quite a bit, even if it just gets a little bit of a tap. So we're actually going to be replacing that with some suction cups here in just a minute. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the filter cartridge it comes with. Now, these are just like any other filter cartridge you may have seen. They've got filter floss on one side and carbon on the other. So water passes through them, it catches everything. They will grow beneficial bacteria, so they will hold a cycle, but they're meant to be disposable. So pretty much these are gonna last you maybe 6 months, a year. You can rinse them off under tap water or tank water, and you can keep them for a while, but eventually this is gonna start to come apart on you. So with that in mind, we're going to be replacing these with some more permanent media. I've seen people use filter scrubbies, I'll call them filter scrubbies, but pot scrubbies from the dollar store. We're actually going to be using just a piece of filter foam, so it's just some sponge from an old sump that I used to have. We're going to cut that down to this size and kind of shove that down in the filter. That's going to hold a cycle. It'll also help with mechanical filtration a little bit. And over time, hopefully we'll be able to tell whether or not that's going to be an appropriate mod for this filter. That's actually the entire point of me doing this review. We know that this thing is probably going to work off the shelf. If you just pop it in a tank with the cartridge and let it cycle, let it run like any other filter, you can probably keep some fish alive. What I want to know is, over the course of 90 days, in this case we're doing a 3-month run, can we modify the mounting mechanism into something less stupid, so make it actually fit on those tanks? And can we take a filter cartridge based system and successfully modify it into a more permanent media system? My gut tells me yes, but we're just going to have to find out. So let's get this set up on a tank and we'll go from there.
To fix the mounting mechanism on this filter,
You want to start by getting a drill bit with a slightly smaller diameter than the nub on the back of your suction cup. Next, you can take a pair of scissors and cut off the pegs that the clip snaps onto on the back of the filter. Once you've got your pegs cut off, you're going to take the drill bit that you picked out earlier and you're going to drill out 2 holes on the back of the filter where those pegs used to be. Once you have your holes drilled out, you can take your suction cups and force them through the holes. It'll be a very tight fit if you chose your drill bit correctly, but you do need that to be pretty tight to make sure the filter isn't loose. Now that we have the filter modifications done, we're going to start working on the tank itself. I'm using a standard 5.5 gallon glass aquarium. It's been used in projects before, so the back glass is already painted black. And I'm kind of going for a modern planet aquarium look, so that means a dark substrate. So I'm going to be using about 10 pounds of black diamond blasting sand, and we're going to kind of smooth that towards the back so it's deeper, and that's going to give us an illusion of depth to the tank. The next step is to scape the tank, and while I'm no aquascaper, I do have a few pieces of saber stone, and it's pretty hard to make a tank look bad with this stuff. So I'm just going to put these in here in a way that looks pleasing to me, and hopefully leave myself some room for some plants around and behind them, so that when we do plant this tank in a few days, we'll have plenty of room to maneuver. So we're going to throw in some filter floss to help clear the water overnight, and we will swap in the filter sponge we cut sometime tomorrow. Alright, it's been about 24 hours since we set the tank up. It's time to switch the filter floss out for that filter sponge that we cut. As I pull this out, you can see that there's quite a bit of debris and just tank litter caught in that filter floss. So we're going to go ahead and discard of that and then shove the filter sponge that we cut down in the filter. Alright, and with that we have the end of the video. The tank is set up, but it still needs to cycle and get established before we add in the fish we have planned. So hopefully I'll be doing an update around the 45-day mark to add in those and show you the progress the tank has made. I will be planning this tank in the coming weeks, but really this is all just to test this Tetra Whisper filter. I want to see if it's actually a decent alternative to a cheap sponge filter. If it is, for $5 and maybe some materials for modifications, it's going to be pretty hard to beat. So thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.